meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Patrick Snow. I'm host of the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, where we interview inspiring authors from all over the planet to share their message, their journey, their hope and inspiration. And today we've got a special guest. Her name is Teresa Callahan. She's been a friend of mine for many, many years. Teresa and I both actually graduated from the University of Montana back in the day. Go Grizz.
Go Grizz!
Yeah, and so we're super excited to share with her a message today. Her book is titled Managing for Performance, Building Accountability for Team Success, and she has become an expert in helping great leaders build high-performance teams. Her background is in the insurance business, the consulting business. She's also a professional speaker, a life and business coach and consultant. And within about the last 5 years, she's also recently launched a retreat to Tuscany in Italy. And she's done numerous retreats to Tuscany. And we're going to talk both about that and her book. So her book, again, is Managing for Performance. Her retreat program is Retreat to Tuscany. So it's managingforperformance.com and then retreattotuscany.com. And she resides in Missoula, Montana. But before that, she's raised her two sons in Issaquah, Washington for many, many years. So she's very familiar with those of you in the Pacific Northwest. So without further ado, please join me and welcome my longtime friend, Teresa Callahan.
You're going to say good time friend, weren't you?
I almost said that. Yeah, long time friend.
Totally fine. Whatever works, Patrick.
Yeah, and by the way, I was in Montana. My son got married in Wyoming this last summer, and I was passing through Missoula, and you and your guy had me come over to your house, and you just moved into a brand new, beautiful home on the golf course in Missoula. So how is that coming along? Are you guys all settled? You got your furniture all squared away now or what?
It's awesome. Like world headquarters has moved back to Montana, Missoula, Montana. And after being in the Seattle area for 22 years, it's good to be home. I think I appreciate it more all the time. Raising my boys, they're out into the world. It's great to come back to my roots. And world headquarters has a new space, and we got lots of snow last night. So I really am home now. I'm like, oh yeah, it's cold here. But yeah, it's been a great journey and it's been really fun. I was a State Farm agent in Missoula, Montana, and the company relocated me to the Seattle area when I moved into leadership. And I was the first female State Farm agent in this town. There are 9 agents total. And when I left, it was 1998. I'm dating myself. So it's taken almost 20 years for them to appoint the second female State Farm agent in this town, Misty Svoboda. So it's been really fun to be here, to be on site with her and to help her grow her business. Of course, bring in my programs and my leadership, all the content, the things that I've learned over the past 20 years working as a consultant with agents all over the country and other companies. But yeah, it's good to be back here. It's good to come back to my roots. And
well, when I was there in August, I saw that world headquarters, and at that point, you didn't have the signs up or the plant, and so it looks very, very nice.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. I kind of live on Zoom anymore, so when I'm not traveling, so yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, not to date ourselves, but I graduated from the University of Montana in 1991, and I think you were like a year ahead of me. And I don't know if we ever actually met on campus. I might have seen you. You may have seen me, but there's only 10,000 students there. So you're born and raised in Missoula, and how did you select University of Montana?
Well, I went to Gonzaga University my freshman year in college and was studying organizational communications and Spanish and marketing, and actually discovered there was a 4-year program in Missoula, Montana, where I could graduate in 4 years and get the degrees that I wanted. And I ended up coming back here my sophomore year. I pledged the Kappa Alpha Theta sorority and was eventually the Pan-Hellenic president for our campus, which was probably my first big role in leadership in an organization. And it was really fun. I love being back here. I think when you grow up in a smaller town, you spend the whole time thinking about what you're going to do when you leave, right? I didn't even consider University of Montana when I graduated high school. So the fact that I came back here, made some dear friendships, had an amazing college career, worked my way through school, was really proud of that. And so I've come back a couple times. I think I'm here to stay. And Montana and my little village in Italy, which I'll talk about a little bit today in Tuscany, is called Montisi. So my Italian friends say, okay, so now you're going to spend your life between Montana and Montisi. We can handle that.
Oh, I love it. I love
That's sort of the plan. That's the vision right now.
Well, I want to spend the majority of time talking about that because I think that's so exciting. But first, you graduated as a Grizzly. And then how did you find yourself in the insurance business?
Well, my mother-in-law was a very high-performing State Farm agent in Austin, Texas. And I had a lot of people approaching me about what you can do next. And I had a bit of an entrepreneurial instinct about me. I knew that. But knowing someone who was successful introduced me to State Farm Insurance, happened to be the company. And I don't know that anybody grows up and says, oh, when I get older, I'm going to work in insurance. When I grow up, I'm going to work in insurance. You know, this isn't the most sexy industry anybody could ever think of, but it's been a very stable. And I think after everything we've been through with the pandemic and everything else, I've seen my clients who sell all lines of insurance really stabilize their businesses, continue to scale. I think all of a sudden, everyone's awareness around their health and their well-being and their livelihood, they were willing to have conversations around insurance. So while some other industries really have been volatile and challenged and strained, even during the pandemic, most of my clients' businesses were thriving and they're in a good place right now, even still. So it's been great. It sustained me, but I found that it really is about serving others. It's about building relationships with people, taking the complexities out of a service or a product and being able to make it easy for them. Most people don't like dealing with insurance. So if you can make it fun or informative and make them feel good about the resources that they're putting into their portfolio, it can be a lot of fun. And moving back to my hometown, it also was a chance to, I had a lot of pride, you know, in growing and scaling a business. I loved coming back to Missoula and having a business here and taking a lot of ambiguities out of that topic product for my clients, for sure.
So you graduate, you get into insurance, you're in Missoula, you're building your business, and then all of a sudden you move to the state of Washington. I know a lot of years were in Issaquah and on the east side. Talk about your progression with your career in insurance and how you move from being an agent and to being a consultant and a coach, you know, serving other agents. How did that transition happen?
Well, as an agent, around my fourth, fifth year of being an agent, I was asked to speak at events. And a lot of times it was in regard to how do you find these really good people? How do you keep them engaged? How do you, you know, because a lot of these small business owners had a lot of turnover. I was selling a lot of product and building my portfolio very rapidly. It was fun for me. We were doing silly things like the homecoming parade. You know, we'd have an entrance in the parade and everybody would dress up like different kinds of insurance and we throw these Teresa Callahan footballs out to the crowd. You know, it's just like, let's make it fun and let's engage our community. And so as sales leaders in different parts of my zone and working on a task force back at the corporate level had me go speaking, I discovered, oh, I really like coaching and consulting and speaking and helping other agents be the best that they could be. And so that path guided me down into leadership. And I was approached by our executive team that said, hey, why don't you consider leadership? Why don't you think about, you know, moving into an operations role, of which I said, no, why would I ever want to do that initially? But I found that I really enjoyed the coaching element of it. I don't even know that there was a name for it at that point. Professional coaching hadn't really taken off quite yet. But when I stepped into my first role, I said yes. They relocated me to Seattle. And suddenly I had 33 agencies, not just one, all on the east side of Seattle. And my role was to support them and coach them, help them to build recruiting campaigns, help them build marketing strategies, new ways to train and engage and keep your people. And it was really fun for me. And I discovered professional coaching. And so after about 5 years in that role, you're expected to keep moving up the corporate ladder. My opportunity to go into a next executive role was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Thousand Oaks, California, or Raleigh, North Carolina. Those were the three cities I had an opportunity to go speak with the executive and move into my next executive role. And about that time, I had a son. My oldest son was having some health issues. I had a marriage that was falling apart. I was having anxiety attacks, you know, traveling. And I said to my executive team, you know, this is just isn't my time. I can't pick up and move again. I got shit going on at home and I
Yep.
really need to take care of that. And it was
Wow.
scary because I actually asked for sabbatical. I put it in writing and nobody does this, right? And they granted me a short sabbatical. And when that
Wow.
sabbatical was over, I came back and they said, we really need you to come back. Your company car is waiting for you in the parking lot. Your office is empty, you know? And I decided I needed a year. And I wrote a resignation letter with tears streaming down my face, thinking,
Mm.
who says no to these opportunities? You know, I thought I was crazy on one hand, but I knew I needed to be home. I needed to take care of my family and I needed to get my own stuff together. So during that time, the company kept bringing me in to do contract work, projects, oversee
Yeah.
agent diversity. Why don't you get Colby certified and work with our developmental agents? And before I knew it, a coaching career was starting to unfold. I
You
learned
started
about
getting these independent
international,
clients. Yeah.
yeah,
And the clients started coming in. Yeah.
totally. And I learned about the International Coach Federation. I signed myself up and started driving up to Vancouver, BC from Seattle for these 3-day intensive workshops. And I went through all the professional coach training. And when I discovered the company still could utilize my talent and I still could make an impact on a contract basis, it'll be 20 years next July. Can you believe it?
Well,
20 years.
I remember right about that time, you and I met, and we actually met at the Washington Athletic Club, and we sat down
Oh,
at the lunch and we talked about your book. So remind me exactly
oh,
who connected us
wow.
and where this book concept came in from, because I don't remember how we met. And then I think at the time we figured out
You
we were
totally
together.
talked me into writing a book. We talked a couple times, and we remember that one time we met in Issaquah and had coffee. So fast forward a few years, you and I reconnected, and you were in the Issaquah area. Hey, come meet me for a cup of coffee. I really enjoyed meeting with you. Well, at that point, a lot of things in my life had changed. I had committed to building a consulting practice. I was going through coach training. I had built a leadership program, and I started enrolling State Farm agents around the country into my leadership program on their own and would hire me. And I started picking up some contract work with some nonprofit organizations. I was Colby certified, and I had met another colleague who was bringing me into Microsoft. I had some engineering firms that I was working with. But I remember sitting with you and having coffee, and you said, well, have you ever thought about writing a book? And the minute you said that, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be found out. I felt like a fraud. Like, who am I? You know, he just found out I have all this content. And I said, Patrick, that's silly. Who would want to read my book? And you said, Teresa, you have already developed so much content. You have this 6-month leadership program. You know, do you like coaching? And I said, well, I actually really love speaking. And you said, don't you need a platform for your speaking? So I'm glad you don't remember the story, that I get to refresh your memory, because
Yeah.
you were the one who said, you have all this content, you've been blogging, you've been putting things together. Why not publish a book? Why not let that be your new business card when you meet someone? And I really will always thank you. I know I've referred a lot of people to you just to have the conversation, because I think all of us think, well, who am I? Who am I to give this advice? Who am I to publish a book? But honestly, it was a little bit about legacy. It was actually an accountability structure for me to organize my thoughts, organize my lessons learned working with great business owners. And I tell you, it has been a blessing for me to have this, not only to check that box and say, I did this thing, because now I'm working on my next book project, but also to just know that, yeah, I've learned some really critical things about building high-performing teams from those in the trenches doing the work and my own experiences. And to be able to speak to it and share it, it's a way to carry it forward. And I never wrote a book for the purpose of making money on a book or being a famous book publisher or anything like that. It really was owning my work and finding a platform to give back in a really different way. So my 6-month leadership program has continued to evolve. I kind of have an application process, and if we're a good fit and I decide I would like to work with you, I will say, I would love for you to enroll in this program. We're going to commit to each other for 6 months. We're going to roll up our sleeves and get stuff done. And I have come to believe that if I'm going to coach you and you're a small business owner, I am a holistic coach, meaning I want to coach the whole system. I want to coach the players in it. I want to talk to all the people in the spirit of deep democracy and find out the real truth so we can get stuff done. And it's just been a great structure and accountability piece for me in terms of building my brand and really staying in my lane. You know, I love the people stuff. That's my sweet spot. You know, I can sit and design a marketing plan with you. We can talk about business strategy, but this taking the mystery out of the people stuff and why people do the things that they do and being the best leader that you can be to inspire them to their greatness or help them leave. Like, I don't believe there's any other choice. Help that employee be the best that they can be and develop them, or help them leave.
And that's what your book does. So show everybody the cover of the book and just kind of put it up on the screen.
Oh, this is my book, Managing for Performance. I can see all my little, I actually read from it in my workshop sometimes. I actually read my own work, which I kind of like, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to update that piece right there. But yeah, building accountability for team success. And to me, it's all these stories and lessons learned in working with high performing leaders and teams. There's an entire section in the back that's resources, and many of the coaching tools I still use with my clients through my program. And what's been nice, Patrick, for me having this is that people will go online and order my book through my website, and I'll write to them and say, do you want me to sign it? Is there anything special I can help you with? Sometimes people just want to read their own content and do their own work, and they're not interested in hiring a coach. They're intimidated. You know, I'm finding a lot of people will reach out to me and feel like they've got some cleaning up. You ever have a house cleaner and you clean your house before the house cleaner gets there? Because you don't want them to see how dirty and bad things really are, right? It's kind of the same when you're working with small business owners. I think it's very intimidating. It's lonely. It can feel very isolating. People judge themselves like, I should be better at this by now, right? And I mean, I have 30-year agents and 30-year business owners. I had a company last week reach out to me, and it's the director, one of the directors within the organization. And she said, our executive team's really struggling and we need help with the people stuff. And so we had a great conversation, and it takes a lot of courage to reach out to someone like me, I think. And so
show us the cover again and describe this. Looks like a barcode with all these people holding up parts of the barcode. So talk about the inspiration behind that.
It was really fun. I had a lot of fun doing research on what should a book cover look like. I'm not a super creative person, really dreaming up this stuff, but this image spoke to me because it did look like a barcode, like a business. You're trying to scale and scan and become something.
Automated.
Yet it's kind of messy because the bars are falling over and things aren't in place exactly where they're supposed to be. This person's up here reading. This one's like doing pole vaulting over the bar. This one's doing the splits. She's like, oh, I'm so happy. Look at me. This one's doing high kicks and this one's on his ass, frustrated as you know what. Like, and I think when you're managing people and you're building teams, all this stuff happens. And sometimes it happens all at the same time. So I had a lot of fun with this image, and it really does play itself out no matter what stage you are in the business. I work with a lot of business startups, and people stuff is really messy, and you think you know what you want, but then you become something different. And I'm coming to believe that we're always evolving. Like one of these bars moves over all the time. And if we're not nimble and quick and resilient, then we're probably not going to make it. So
it's kind of like herding cats, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it is. It's so dynamic. And the biggest conundrum, the biggest challenge, I guess, I see business owners facing and team leaders within organizations. I worked with a lot of managers within Microsoft for a period of time, and they're so good at the work that they keep getting promoted because they're so good at the work, or they're so good at the work, they decide to launch their own business. And then they wake up one day and discover that their number one responsibility is the development of people.
Yeah.
And
not so good at their people skills.
Nobody taught me that stuff, you know. And I had a business owner in Chicago I've been working with for years. And I wrote it down when he said it to me. And I've used this example at speaking events for years. He said to me, Teresa, if I knew then what I know now, I would have got my degree in human psychology, not business.
Wow. Wow.
And it kind of summed it up, because human beings are complicated.
Yeah.
We're and in today's world, we're praised for we're we're imperfect people, right? You're imperfect. You're perfectly imperfect, just the way you are. Well, if we believe that's true, why do we take all these imperfectly perfect people, human beings, and put them together and expect it to be perfect?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about any relationship you've ever been in. I've officiated a couple of weddings this past couple of years, and which was an absolute honor. And one of the things as I was reading was this whole concept that we're expected to be these, be perfect in relationship, right? Our relationship's supposed to be perfect. We don't have problems, right? And it's like, no, we're messy human beings. Why do we think we walk into a relationship and suddenly we're perfect? And why do we as human beings walk into a business setting or, go to work and expect to be a perfect team? It's a lot of work. And if you don't love people and you don't love developing people, you shouldn't be in a leadership role, because that's the number one responsibility that I've learned.
I love it. I love it. Our guest today is Teresa Callahan. The book is Managing for Performance, Building Accountability Through Team Success. And if you want to follow along online, managingforperformance.com or retreat2tuscany.com. And I love your background with State Farm, but I think they made a mistake many years ago with all those State Farm insurance commercials that we see on TV, and they picked that spokesman, Jake, from State Farm. I think they should have picked Teresa from State Farm. And I think you would have done a better job than him.
It's okay. I bleed State Farm, and, I love the industry. I think it's so dynamic, but there's a lot of good people. And I've been so honored and privileged after all these years. Like I said, it'll be 20 years since I went on sabbatical this coming July. Everyone teases me that I'm still on sabbatical, 20 years later, but I have coached executives at all levels of the organization, from the corporate level down to, the agents in the field who will hire me directly. I'm leading right now a leadership academy for team leaders within agencies. That's been a lot of fun, where I'm bringing them all together with me in New York in December. And we're going to have a celebration, a workshop and a celebration dinner at this rooftop restaurant in the Bronx. And it's just having the freedom to be creative and be outside the box a little bit and do things a little differently. And it's an honor, absolute honor.
So how can team leaders or, what's important about helping great leaders build high-performing teams? How does one do that?
Well, you better love people. Like I said earlier, I think most of my clients and people I've worked with, very high-performing business owners, very high-performing managers within organizations, discover that their biggest challenge is the people stuff, taking the mystery out of why people do the things that they do. And if you can make sure you've got the right butts in the right chairs, and then you've got accountability measures in place at all levels of the organization, it's a lot easier to hit your targets and hit your success. And with the people work that I do, that's a lot of it, helping take the mystery out of why they do what they do. I became a Kolbe certified consultant, KOLBE, using the Kolbe concepts years ago. And it is still the number one tool that I use. And it's often my lead-in. It's often the first piece of work that I do with an organization or with a team, is to take them through a Kolbe workshop. And it's a talent-based assessment tool that shines the light on what's right about you. Even the language in it is all about what's right about you. And how do you use your talent? How do we leverage that at work to get the kind of results that we need? Sometimes I find with organizations, it's just a matter of rebalancing the team talent. You might have the right person in the wrong job. Or you might have someone who's striving and pushing towards a certain career path, and this organization is not going to be able to support them. We have to be better at helping people leave. But to be a great career coach, to be a great developer of others, to be a great coach, we've got to take a little step back and assess what's right about these people. Where are they stuck? How can I help them be the best that they can be? And for me, that is the number one essential element in building a high-performing team, is the people. And when you get the right people in place, it's easy to build a good culture, a great work culture. And the people come together to co-create that. It's about values and belief systems, right? How they see the world. And if those things are similar, it's also easy to attract more of those people into that work environment.
So what are the essential elements that set apart these high-performing leaders from others? What are some of those elements?
I would say the first is an absolute desire to serve others, an absolute desire to develop people, leaving legacy. A lot of my clients have this theme of legacy. I have them build a mission statement, and it's part of our work when we first do work together. Self-awareness. The first exercise I do with my clients is called a leadership wheel exercise, where you self-assess your level of satisfaction in your role today as a leader of your team or the leader of your business, and rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. And when they do this exercise and draw a new outer perimeter of their wheel, it's like, if this was a real wheel, how bumpy would your ride be, right? And when someone will give themselves a 3, and when it comes to recruiting talent, I'll say, well, what makes it 3? And they'll share with me what makes it a 3. And I'll say, well, this isn't about being a perfect 10, but if this was a more balanced wheel, right? If you improved in that area, what would it look like? What would be happening that isn't happening now? And you can actually watch someone go into like a daydream, like a daydream kind of phase where they start thinking of how easy things would be, and things would be, I would be putting my energies in different places, and people would be appreciating their work, and I'd be coaching them, and we'd be having fun, and we'd be hitting all of our records. And if someone's talking, it's like, okay, well, we've got some work to do. What if we just move the mark there, right? So self-awareness, to me, that exercise is a chance to look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I like what I see? You know, we all have blind spots, and that's where coaching can be really helpful, is to help to see the blind spots. But if you've got the courage to do the work and be better, so you can develop people in a more unique and authentic way, you can really, I do believe you can have a lot of breakthroughs. You can move your organization to the next level. But you better let people have a great deal of self-awareness, and then have the courage to say, I might need some help.
So today, with all these people working from home, everybody's in their own little place virtually. Yeah. How do leaders engage these employees, best in these virtual working conditions?
Yeah, a lot of my coaching over the past 2 years has been focused on that. And to me, it all came down to accountability. And a lot of teams have come back with a hybrid version of working remote, working on site. I think we all wanted to renegotiate the rules because we discovered, wow, I really do need some sort of balance in my life. And we found out, isn't it amazing? We found out we can work remote. We found out we can get stuff done and not physically go to the office every single day. I think that was the biggest breakthrough for a lot of organizations. And I'll say in the insurance and financial services industry, this was a huge aha. It was life-changing for so many people. So creating new norms has been a real big part of it. But to hold others accountable when we're working virtual, in my experience, is about having systems and processes and a rhythm in place. I've helped a lot of my clients put together what I'll call a daily routine planner with everybody on the team. 8 a.m., 8:30, we're going to do a team huddle. Jump online, jump on your phone, use your Zoom, whatever it might be. But it's syncing with one another and checking in. I also think we all need a scorecard, and a scoreboard. How am I doing throughout the day? How's the rest of the team doing throughout the day? What's going on within the organization? Full transparency. And so a lot of my clients have implemented systems where they can see visually what's going on for the day, and it's accountability, it's metrics. I mean, imagine playing a basketball game and not having a scoreboard. Right. Yeah. I mean, we need to know how much time we have in the game. We need to know how many baskets we've made. We need to know how many shots that team's made. We need to know what the status is. And so when we're virtual, we were forced to put new systems in place to create more accountability, more visibility, and checking in with each other. It's also a part of making sure you're checking in with your people on a human level. How are you doing today?
Yeah.
I know your mom was really sick last week. How's she doing?
Yeah.
Your dog kept jumping on your lap when we were in that meeting yesterday. What's your dog's name? It's just the human element of connecting. And I don't think that we need to lose that even when we go back to the office. And it might be sort of old school thinking. And maybe in my generation, my managers didn't do this as much when I was younger, where we had to draw a line between your personal life and your professional life. And today's world, I mean, I raised 2 boys and they're in their 20s and they want to feel connected and be friends with the people they work with. And I think now more than ever, we need to realize, yeah, there is a bridge here, and we want to get engaged with that whole person. What's going on in your life personally? How is that impacting and or supporting you at work?
Well, I think that's evolved in your, own development and your career. You were in sales, building an agency. Then you got into the management side of things, supporting 33 agents. You took that sabbatical, you focused on your dreams, your goals, your visions. You wrote this amazing book, Managing for Performance. And somewhere deep down inside, there was still another dream, another goal that I know you wrote out on some goal sheets. And that was, to escape to Tuscany, to take what you've learned in corporate America and apply that towards, women maybe, and relationships, men and women. So talk about the early visions of what you kind of thought about, and then talk about how Retreat to Tuscany came to be.
Yeah. Okay. So a little pivot, maybe a breakthrough in awareness. And it was about 5 years ago. I was in the back of the room holding space for a good friend of mine. It was one of her first conferences, and actually, she got up on the stage for this to kick off this day. She said, what's that one thing you keep hearing yourself say? Someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going, like, this is not a dress rehearsal, right? This is your one precious life. And I have said this to clients before, but the moment she said it, I could feel the tears sting my eyes. And in the back of the room, here I am helping her hold space for this incredible, event. And I just uncontrollably, tears were streaming down my face. And the one thing that I had kept saying to myself for 10 years, almost 10 years, was someday I'm going to return to Tuscany. Well, that was a time
when
in
you
my
say
life.
Return, so you had been there earlier.
I'd been there once before, many years ago. I was still married at the time. Things were starting to feel a little off for me in my personal life, and my professional life was feeling a little uncertain at the time. And while I was in Tuscany for the very first time, I think I felt sadness for not being able to appreciate being in the moment. I think I was so in my head that entire trip. I was already starting to mourn the possible loss of my marriage. I had stuff going on at home that was distracting. And it was really hard for me because I wanted to embrace and appreciate this time here. It was so beautiful. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the countryside. So fast forward, all these years, almost 10 years, I always said, someday I'm going to go back. I had been divorced. I had rebuilt my life, raised 2 boys as a single mom, and was running my own business. And when she said that to me, and I heard my voice say, because I'd said it to so many people, someday I'm going to return to Tuscany, it was so emotional. Like, I need to go back, as if I had left breadcrumbs there that I needed to go back and find. Like, it just felt compelling to me to do it. So I went home that night. I didn't tell a soul I did this, but I booked a one-way ticket to Tuscany. I was looking around on my calendar. I'd reached out to my ex-husband and I said, if I went away for a couple of weeks during this time, I knew it was like a period of time when the boys weren't in sports, because I still had one of them still at home. He was in high school, and I wanted to be a responsible mom. And I found this block of time that I thought made sense. Well, I bought a one-way ticket. And the minute I pulled out my credit card and hit the send button, Patrick, it was like the floodgates just came open. I poured myself a big glass of wine. I sat down in my chair and I was like, what have I done? Like, I just booked a trip by myself to go halfway around the world, and I didn't tell a soul. I started feeling guilty and ashamed. And who am I to spend this money? Who am I to take this time? And it took me a while to tell anyone. I told a couple of my dear friends who I trusted. And of course they freaked out. They're like, why did you only buy a one-way ticket? Like, what's going on? Right. And the truth is I didn't know how long I needed to stay. Yeah. I didn't know how long I was going to stay. I just knew no one was invited, and this was something I needed to do for myself. And so fast forward.
By the way, you talked about a second book. I think your second book could be titled Returning to Tuscany. Yeah. I love that title.
Maybe so. It's been such a beautiful journey. And when I got there, fast forward 6 months, whenever it was I arrived, I found myself on this beautiful terrace.
How long were you there, by the way?
About 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
By myself. I had never traveled. I mean, this is crazy, right? I mean, who takes themselves halfway around the world all by themselves? It sounded kind of reckless, but super exciting. So I started telling people and justifying and realizing I don't have to justify what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and it's just edge work for me. This is scary as hell, but I'm going to go do this. I'm going to see what comes of all of this, right? And while I'm there, I'm writing, I'm journaling. When I felt brave enough, I started blogging and writing and publishing, even on Facebook, my journey and a picture of the view looking out over Montepulciano. And what I found, Patrick, in my journaling with myself was so much forgiveness for myself and everything, just choices I'd made and things I'd been through, forgiving my ex-husband, forgiving, people in my life and things that had happened to me. And it was like my heart just burst wide open. And not only was I able to do some healing in that moment, in that period of time, there also was so much love I was able to receive. And I met people, and there's another whole story and book project probably around the person that I met. There was a guy involved. Yep.
So you go to Tuscany. We can save that for another interview.
Under the Tuscan sun, raging love affair, and it was wonderful. And it helped me fall in love with Tuscany, and it helped me learn a lot about myself that I was kind of afraid to learn, and places I needed to go. And it was just so lovely. And while I'm there, I've been talking with my executive coach, because I've always had coach presence in my life. And I said, I really want to go back to Tuscany. And I was in the process of creating retreats. I mean, I've been designing events and retreats and programs for my whole career. And she said, well, maybe someday you'll have a retreat in Tuscany. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of silly, but maybe that's not so crazy. Well, when I started publishing and writing about my experiences and the breakthroughs that I was having and sharing some pictures, I had so many women reach out to me and say, oh my gosh, Teresa, I've always wanted to do something like that. If you go back, will you take me?
Yeah, I want to go too, right?
Sending me private messages like, I've always wanted to go to Tuscany. It's a dream of mine. I would love it if you would create something where we could go. So that was really it. I came back and I hand selected a group of women. There were 12 of us total. This was in 2017. And said, if you really want to do this thing, here's how it's going to go down. And this is kind of what I'd like for us to do and experience. And tell me why this is important to you. Because I wanted to make sure we were aligned. And then I came back in that fall and I booked the villa. I hired a tour guide. I found a chef. I really put our team together. I went truffle hunting with Nico because I wanted to learn about truffle hunting. I literally built the program during that trip and brought these women back the following May. And we just hit it out of the park. I mean, every day was filled with emotion. It's so beautiful and stimulating in so many ways. You go into this medieval village that's about 900 years old. You live in this little village, in this villa that's 500 years old. And you are immersed in this culture where many of the people don't speak English. Everything just slows way down. And I've come to believe that sometimes you have to take yourself halfway around the world and immerse yourself in a culture where you don't know the people, you don't speak the language, to reconnect with yourself and set intentions for a new beginning.
Right there, let me stop you, because someone on your website, one of these women wrote that what I loved about Teresa's retreat in Tuscany was finally I found space, I found silence, time to drift, time to think. So when you bring these women, are they now just women, or is it now couples retreats? What does the retreat look like? What are they experiences that men and women, couples? How has this evolved, and how many have you done now?
Yeah, so I've had 7 women's retreats. We're planning 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 right now, all the way into 2025. We have dates in the book. We have dates established, and I haven't even published them yet. But the women's retreat program will always be my baby. I mean, there's so much involved in our big why around it. And I'll tell you more about the juicy details of it. But I also took for the first time this year, a group of couples. They were friends and family, because the guys were like, well, we want to go to Tuscany. Why can't we go to Tuscany? And I thought, well, I'll take my brother and his girlfriend, and I'll take some groups. And I took some friends and family. We lived in this beautiful villa. We had such an amazing time. Every room in the villa has its own ensuite bathroom. There's 8 of them. And then we have two bedroom attached apartments to our villa. And we loved it, and they loved it, and they got to experience all the things that we do while we're there. And then 2 weeks later, I had a wine club from Washington. I work with Genoa Cellars and have for several years. And the wine club members had expressed interest in coming to Tuscany because it's all about the Sangiovese wine and the education of the wine in Tuscany, and cooking and having our in-house chef, and yoga and meditation, and spending a day at an organic farm learning about slow cooking and slow living. And I realized that these men had just as many emotional connections and breakthroughs for themselves as some of the women do, that we don't give ourselves permission to just slow down and practice being. You know, we're always so busy striving. And while we're on vacation, we're booking our next vacation. I mean, for goodness sake, can't we just slow down and practice being in the moment? And so, you know, I don't know what will happen with that. We are talking, my assistant partner, Nicole, who's been helping me as a co-host. She's based in Huntington Beach, and we came back from our spring retreats, and she said, Teresa, I think we should take this and run with it. Like, there are guys and women, couples that want to experience this. And I said, why don't you take that and run with it? I'm kind of busy over here with this women's retreat program. It's my baby. I love it. And so I've just learned to never say never. And I've learned to keep my heart and my mind open and to serve in a way that it's so unique, right? It's not such a crazy idea anymore. And talk about manifestation. I wrote down 10 years ago in a journal, thinking about my future, someday I'm going to spend 1 month a year in Tuscany. Someday I'm going to spend time in Tuscany. And now look, I have created this program that allows us to live in Tuscany for several weeks to several months in the spring, and several weeks to several months in the fall. And it's so purpose driven. I think for me, that's been the most beautiful part of all, is the discovery that it's okay to create these crazy dreams. It's okay to chase them and go see what happens. Because if you can change other people's lives and you can create a platform for other people to do things that they might not do, it's what I call edge work. I mean, to book a trip by yourself to go to Italy, and for these women to book a trip like this, a retreat where you got coaching work for 3 months leading up to it, you're living in a house with a bunch of women you don't know very well. I mean, that takes some courage, right? And so my job is to make sure it's the right fit and the right group of women, that they're going to hold space in each other's hearts for one another as much as they're able to receive it. And most of the women who've been attracted to this program are going through some sort of transition in their life. You know, maybe they're suddenly empty nesters and they've given everything they have to their family for all these years. And they're asking, well, what's next for me? Some of them are masterful at running businesses, running teams, but they don't do anything for their own self-care. And, you know, teaching them being self-care isn't selfish. It's really necessary to take care of you so you can better serve and take care of others moving forward. And the coaching exercises that we do and the sharing that we do when we gather every evening is just beautiful to sit and witness. I feel so privileged to watch some of the breakthroughs.
And talk about your chef, the chef that you partnered with there that cooks all this amazing slow cooking food, as you said.
Chef Nora, she is part of our team. I mean, and to watch her take over the kitchen and greet you. I mean, we walk in the door from Montepulciano. We've been hiking into the caves and wine tasting. We go to meet a family that makes their own cold pressed olive oil. And, you know, we're in the van and we come home and you walk in the door and these flavors just wafting through the air. You know, you can smell the kitchen and we all gravitate towards the kitchen. And there's Chef Nora with this big smile, just waiting for you. And we'll stand with her and make pasta. We'll roll out gnocchi. We'll make sauces together and we'll chat. And it's the gathering around this table and cooking together and sitting and breaking bread together and talking and sharing. It's very emotional, right? It takes us back to other times and places in our life when we felt safe, when we felt loved, when we had connection. And what's that?
Felt connected.
Felt connected, yeah. And some of these friendships, these women don't know each other very well. even when they arrive, we've done 3 months of Zoom coaching. But I mean, some of these friendships are lifetime friendships. I have every group has its own WhatsApp group. My phone blows up every day, all day, like, because these groups many years later are still staying connected, telling stories. Here's a picture of my new grandbaby. Oh, this is what happened to me. Here's my foot. I've got it up in a chair. Just had my surgery. They love each other so much and they want to share and they feel connected, and they're all over the country. And
Wow.
so it's good work. I'm proud of the work and I feel so honored. And it's just so cool to be able to do something that you love so much.
And you are leaving your legacy. And if you look at the chat box, there's all these people saying, well, I want to get in. I want this.
Good.
What's
I need
your
to open
contact
the chat panel.
So how can people get a hold of you if they want to return their soul to Tuscany? How can people get in touch with you to look at a future retreat with you, whether it be just a women's retreat or maybe the couples retreat?
Yeah, well, the first step is just to reach out. I have on my website an actual application, which is actually coaching exercise, because it's some introspective questions. What interests you in this? What's going to make this an amazing experience for you? And I guide people to it if they really are ready to jump in, right? I mean, I have women tell me all the time, I've been following you on Instagram for 3 years. I think I'm ready to go. They get scary, right? But call me, email me, reach out through the website for a conversation. I love talking about it. I love sharing stories. And if it resonates for you, I say, then let's have a conversation. And there's the spring retreat, which is all about renewal. And there's the fall retreat, which is harvest season. And to me, those seasons are both beautiful and represent different phases in our lives as well. Some women very much gravitate towards renewal and the spring poppies and the green grass, like it's so beautiful in the spring. And others really love harvest season. They like the warmth and the beautiful golden rolling hills and all the food that's available to us that time of year with harvest. And so we are continuing to grow and build. I love to keep my groups to about 8 to 10. I'm learning is about perfect. I'll do 12, but I love the one-on-one time I get to spend with my clients, because I'll get some one-on-one time with them through coaching. They'll spend time together in some group coaching, preparing through fulfillment, our inner ally, setting intentions together. And then while we're there on retreat, it's important to have that quiet space for one another and each other. We do some journaling. It's beautiful to just watch it all unfold. It's different for everyone, but yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone who's interested. I've had families and groups reach out to me and say, could you design something for our group? Could you tell us more about this and help host us? I had a guy reach out to me. It was actually at an event, and he said, I've been watching you and I've got some friends, very evolved men who I think would really love this. If I gathered a group of men together, would you take me? And I said, yeah, of course I would. Right. And so I'm just trying to pay attention to what's trying to happen right now. And it's a nice balance. I mean, obviously I'm running two very dynamic, different businesses, but it's kind of the same. It's about
being in service to others. That's what you're doing. You're in service to others. So the website is retreattotuscany.com. Again, retreattotuscany.com. That's where they can learn more, to book a conversation, to fill out an application. How can people get a copy of your book, Managing for Performance?
Yeah, go online and order it. And if you send me a direct email or a message and say, Teresa, I'd like a copy of your book. I do these promotional whenever I'm speaking events, and it's $20 and free shipping. I'll pop it in the mail to you, versus the online. I think it's a lot more expensive and there's shipping fees involved. So contact me directly if you want a signed copy. I'd love to get you a copy. And going through the website is probably the best, because then I can learn a little bit about you and I can even sign it if you'd like me to.
Very good. So we're going to finish up this amazing interview. I could talk with you for hours and people want to know more.
I know. Thank you.
And so Mary West is the inspiration behind this weekly author interview series. And that's why we called it the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, because her middle name is Unstoppable. We call her MUW, Mary Unstoppable West. So I want to ask you, as we conclude, how does Teresa Callahan define the word unstoppable? What does that mean to you? Because when you bought that one-way airline ticket, you were being unstoppable and nothing was going to stop you from that vacation.
Yeah, unstoppable to me is just believe in yourself. Do those crazy things. Say yes. Say yes. just say yes. I mean, you just never know where one conversation, take that first step, that step you don't want to take. That's what's needed to not stop yourself. There's so many natural roadblocks in my experience, and the chatter in your head, it tells you, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I can't do that thing. You come up with all these reasons why not to do something. And I believe the answer is saying yes to yourself and take that first step.
I love it. I love it. So the book again, Managing for Performance, Building Accountability for Team Success. The website is Managing for Performance. And any of you that want to go on this amazing retreat, whether the women's retreat or the couples retreat, visit retreat2tuscany.com. Book a conversation with Teresa Callahan. And Teresa, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, this has been amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you.
Any last nuggets of wisdom you want to share?
Me?
Yeah. Any last?
I'm just going to fall back to, believe in you, like believe it, do crazy things you say someday, like just do them. And this is not a dress rehearsal. This is your one precious life, and live it.
I love it.
It doesn't matter who's watching. It doesn't matter who's looking, because you never know. I tell all the women who've gone on a retreat with me, you never know who you're going to inspire by being brave and being courageous and following your own dreams. Because if you can do it, you just might inspire one other person to do it. And to me, that's the greatest blessing and gift we can give anyone.
All right, Teresa Callahan, let's give her a big hand. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna change this to the gallery view, and then Mary, do you want to hit the end record button?